If you take the cap off, what we have here is mayo. So yeah, I had this spare engine and I thought I would use it instead of changing the head gasket. However, on closer inspection, these ones have some surface rust. I don't know if you can see it, but it gets worse. Like this one is like very good. I scraped also this one to see how far it goes. I don't know, it seems too much of a hassle to get this engine prepared.
Also, this engine was an unknown. It had a lot of signs. It was sitting for a while, probably in a damp environment. This means that it would be a lottery on whether it would run without problems. Therefore, a decision was made to rebuild the original engine, and immediately we were greeted by a mushroomed out washer on the sump bolt. This was foreshadowing all the little problems coming up. Since the turbo kit was already off and on the green IS200, the starting point of this assembly was this. Removing the top radiator hose revealed even more emulsion of coolant and engine oil. As expected, the rear crankshaft seal was leaking oil, and by the looks of it for quite a while. Everything was caked in a mix of oil and dirt. The clutch disc was no better. The bulky intake manifold along with the ancillaries were now off.
Yeah, so I don't think this is how you should use Loctite.
Finally, the cam cover was taken off, and it revealed that everything seemed to be in a very good condition. No carbon deposits, no major wear marks. Keep in mind that this car has over 330,000 kilometers on the clock.
Front pulley bolt is finally free. It took this much of a leverage and quite a bit of force to get it moving. I've used an auto flex plate in order to jam this in.
Once again, oil was found in the cooling system.
Head was removed. I'm actually amazed that there is still some cross hatching on them. However, head looks alright, I guess. No major problems. The problem is that I don't see any problems with the head, though there was a lot of evidence of that.
At this point in time, because I could not find an obvious source of my oil and coolant mixing problem, I've turned back to the spare engine and decided to swap around a couple of things and to use that spare engine.
Took off the old part for the oil cooler. This should be a coolant passage. However, you can see that it's full of sludge, oily sludge. Now I'm really worried that the oil cooler is bad. Since my spare engine has this gnarly dent in the oil sump, I think I'll need to take this off and change it for the other engine's one.
I didn't like how the previous owner fabricated this oil return. It has nuts spot welded on the inside. This means that unless you apply sealant to the threads of the bolts, it will leak. Instead, I decided to cut the nuts off and weld bolts in their place. Also, the old oil return was cut off and a plate was welded on. This was done to cover the oil return hole for the periodical technical inspection of the car that was coming up, for which the car had to be stock. Installation of the rear crankshaft seal was marking the start of reassembly. This was followed by the front cover, oil pump, water pump, and various other things at the front of the engine.
First day of reassembly finished. So the engine is looking more fuller. Got quite a bit of things on it. The most thing. So the sump is back on. It's back on its engine mounts. Added some coolant passages already. So tomorrow is gonna be another hard day. Because this particular engine is from a, I guess, 2000 and up Lexus IS200. This engine does not have a hole right here for coolant for the oil cooler. It should go, this part should go in there. However, since there is no port there for this thing, what I will do is take this off. This is the block drain pipe, and since it's a nice to have but it's not necessary, it doesn't do anything while the engine is running and everything's fine, so I'll take this off as I did from the other engine and put this into here, so I can run an oil cooler on this later model 1GFE. So now in place of the block drain, there will be a coolant passage for the oil cooler. One more thing you have to do if you are changing from the later model 1GFE to the older one with oil cooler is to have to change the oil filter thing.
Because the port on the engine block is now slightly in a different position, the stock hose does not fit, but luckily slight trim on one of the ends is enough for it to connect to the oil cooler and the engine block.
Oh, this one is completely fucked, which means I'm gonna cut it off over here and here and weld the new one. Pretty much the second day of reassembly. Got the exhaust manifold on, the intake manifold on, got a bit of ancillaries in the front, and also since I bought a new piece, I've put it in place just to see, and of course you can see that the front has some mangled pieces, so it will not be pretty, but it should be functional and much better than previously.
The lower radiator support is now welded in and painted. Timing belt as well as the drivetrain parts, flywheel, clutch, gearbox, driveshaft are finally on the car.
So the front of the engine is almost complete. It's getting fuller and fuller. Almost ready to get this thing started. So today I was getting ready to assemble the power steering system and generally like finish up the engine. However, this bolt broke and now I have to somehow move it, and it's fine. Because of that bolt, I had to disassemble the front once again. I had to weld quite a while in difficult positions, but at least it now turns. Mother. So after 4 attempts at taking the bolt out, I decided just to weld the new bolt in and make it a stud instead of a hole for it to thread. Welded the bolt and now put a nut on, and now it's solid. Power steering rail lines have also been assembled. Now only the whole front needs to be assembled. Prieš full moroz po dušu.
Since I was replacing the cam cover seals, it was the perfect opportunity to paint the cam cover. If only I knew before I started how much work it would end up being to clean the damn thing.
First coat is on, already looking better than stock.
Love the midnight purple cam cover after final coat of clear. The lights were also sprayed at the same time. They looked so much better than before. At this stage, the engine bay was fully assembled and ready for the first start, or at least I thought so. But of course, something had to start leaking. Firstly, it started to leak from the thermostat housing, because I'm an idiot, and I installed the seal improperly. But at least it's easily fixed by reassembling it properly. And the second leak sprung from the O-ring in the tube which connects the head and the water pump. The tube was quite hard to remove because of the many years of corrosion products accumulating on the sealing surfaces. Quick run to the local shop for new O-rings fixed the problem with about 90 cents spent on parts. With all of the leaks sorted, it was time for the car to once again move on its own power. The crank angle sensor was disconnected for the first rotations to get the oil pressure up without much load on the bearings. After that, it was connected back and it was finally time to hear the 1GFE purr. Once again something was wrong. The engine did not sound healthy, seemed to be down on a few cylinders. Luckily, it was just a loose ground, which was tightened down quickly, and the second attempt was made. Some noises were coming out of the engine at first, but seemed to disappear after some time. But luck turned once more. This time the clutch would not disengage even though we could see the fork move, and adjustment of the pedal did not seem to change anything. Time to remove the gearbox once again, but that is for another time.